Evening all. How are you? How are you doing? See, that's me being polite and civil to you because these things are important. I'm English, after all. It's kind of in my culture. It's in my DNA to be polite and civil. It's also the way I was raised. Now, I mention this because politeness and civility have become unpopular lately. If you've been following the exploits of Maxine Walters in the United States, where she basically said that civility was a white person's imposition on everyone, and we need to abandon civility and take direct action against our enemies without any regard to being civil and polite. Now, this is an extremely dangerous philosophy. You see, we have our civility and our politeness, and it extends far beyond anything white, or actually a better description would be European or Western politeness, because one of the most advanced and civil societies ever that put a great store in politeness and etiquette, the Japanese. And the reason why we have all this politeness and civility is to stop ourselves descending on one another in violence. Every time we have a disagreement, we would have to resolve it with violence and death. That is why when we shake hands, it's to show I haven't got a weapon in my hand. See, it's the right hand, which would normally be someone's weapon. Hand, pardon me. Likewise, in the British parliamentary system, the distance between the Prime Minister's dispatch box and where the leader of the opposition stands to ask questions is precisely the length of two swords. That way, they are beyond combat distance. In Parliament, this is a very old tradition. You might think it's great if they just had a sword fight in Parliament, but trust me, it wouldn't work out well in the end, because then everybody would get tooled up. There'd be a bloodbath in the Houses of Parliament. You may think that's great, hey, edgy anarchist humour, right? But if Parliament cannot maintain civility, then no one in the country can. So we have these rules, and they've been developed not just by white people, not just by Westerners, but every culture in the world. Humanity goes right back. We are tribal people originally, and we are a communicative people. We're the most communicative creatures on the planet. We have this highly developed language skills and brain for the capacity of communication. And so we've developed these over millennia to stop ourselves from descending into violence whenever we have a disagreement. Okay, but now all that is kind of being dismantled by the likes of Maxine Walters, by the likes of people who clog up Twitter on behalf of news agencies like Vox, Vice, Huffington Post. That it's all white privilege, this civility lark. I have to be nice to people, right? Because the whites have told me I have to be nice. It's their way of keeping me down. Well, I don't feel like being nice. And you're entitled to that. You don't feel like being nice, but there are certain minimum standards of civility. Now, you may be old as dirt, like I am, and you might remember a series of Chuck Jones cartoons from the 1950s, pardon me, where there was a sheepdog and a wolf, and they would go to the sheep fields in the morning, and they would clock in. There was a little clocking in time card thing on a tree, and they would clock in, and they go, "Morning, Ralph, morning, Doug," and then as soon as they clocked in, then the fights would begin. The wolf would try and steal the sheep, and the sheepdog would defend them and hit the wolf, and then they'd stop for their lunch break, and then they'd open up their lunchbox and go, "Hello, Ralph and Doug. Great day's work this morning." Yeah, really good. And then they go back to fighting each other. And at the end of the day, they would clock out and then go, "Okay, good to see you again. See you again tomorrow." And that was the whole thing, that they could be bitter enemies during their work, during their professional side. But at the end of the day, they get to go home. They get to go home to their families. And this brings me around to the whole Sarah Huckabee Sanders situation. And also, a couple of years ago, same thing happened to Nigel Farage. He was having lunch with his daughter in a pub, and these activists decided that they would go and harass him there. And the same thing happened recently to Sarah Huckabee Sanders, that people felt that no more civility, no more politeness, no more respect. We're going to go into their personal lives and we're going to get them. We're going to harass them out of the restaurant. We're going to chase them away. And then Peter Fonda was saying something. He was saying something really bonkers, like you dragging your enemies out of their houses and doing kind of unspeakable things. You know, this Peter Fonda, the star of Westworld. No, sorry, the star of Future World, I should say. And not only that, how can I watch Dirty Larry, Crazy Mary ever again, you know, without thinking of that image? This is crazy stuff, and it will only lead in one direction. It will only lead to open violence on our streets. And I know there are a lot of anarchist types who would love that. They just want bloodbath. They want, you know, houses smashed, cars set on fire, blood in the streets. That's their thing. They're building up to some kind of apocalyptic war on the streets. But for a lot of people, I mean, for Democrat supporters and Democrat voters and politicians, and in this country, if you're on Labour or anywhere kind of on the left, is this really where you want to go with this? Because what will happen is that you'll harass some hated politician in a restaurant and think you've scored a victory by chasing them out, but then they'll go, right, I can't have that again. I want to go out with my partner, with my family, with my friends, and I'm not going to get harassed. I'm going to take security with me this time. So that you've got security in restaurants and in public places. They have to take their security with them. And then if you're an activist, you might think, well, I'm going to have to bring more people in. We've got to get tooled up. We've got to get more angry, more aggressive to beat their security so we can get to them. And then the establishment, you know, people on the right will go, well, we need to pass some laws to stop people from doing that in the first place. And then freedoms get restricted. Or because you can't keep your hands to yourself, because you can't be civil and respectful. And just realize people have their individual lives. There are lines we do not cross. We may vehemently oppose someone's politics and oppose someone's opinions on a variety of issues, but there is a level that we do not sink below, and that's a level of violence. You may be one of these Antifa people who think, yeah, no, violence is the answer. But my message is really to those people who have been moderate in the past, or you know, mainstream left in particular, and just think, you don't have to go that way. You don't have to become like the thugs. Okay, draw a line in the sand. Otherwise, it's just going to be bloodshed. And don't think your hated politician, don't think the people on the right or even in the centre, because the centre's the new evil, you know, as Owen Jones says. Don't think they're going to sit back. They're going to do whatever it takes for them to survive. Okay? The survival instinct is strong. So if you go and commit an act of violence against a hated politician who's just having a meal with their family, then they will respond. They may even up the ante. And then it'll just escalate from there. And then we're all at each other's throats. You will not get what you want. You'll just have blood. Somebody will die. Somebody will get killed for the sake of being a loudmouth activist in a restaurant. Okay? That's where it's going to end. And I'll leave you tonight with something Jesus said. You may not believe in God or Jesus, but what was written in the Bible about love your neighbor as yourself, love your enemies, there is an underlying point to that. You know, it's not about love your enemy, you're getting sort of wishy-washy with them. But it's about saying, no, even though I hate their ideas and I hate their actions, there's a level I cannot go. I cannot wish them dead. I cannot incite anything that will lead to them dying. I can't do it. And I think that's my message to everyone tonight is just ramp it down. Reintroduce civility. It's not a white privilege thing. It's just something every single one of us can do. And this hated white male, the most evil man on the planet, okay, is bidding you good night until next time. Bye.